Hello, my name is Brian Childress. I'd like to welcome y'all to Chicken Noodle Soup Done Right. And I'd like to start by asking everybody to give me an explanation of their favorite chicken noodle soup and why.
Mine would be the soup that my dad used to make for us when we were growing up.
And what made it special?
It was just his, and it reminds me of home.
Nice. And what is yours?
Mine is actually my chicken noodle soup because I really enjoy the noodles that I use, and I like to mix in different ingredients to make the soup different every time.
Excellent. And yours?
I actually love your chicken noodle soup. I like the way that the chicken's marinated. It gives it a really good flavor.
Nice. And yours?
My favorite would be Katie's, my daughter's also. Hers is just really good.
I've had it. It's pretty good. So we're going to talk about the way I like to make it, and mine is based off of my friend Chance's grandmother. Her name was B. Grubbs, and before church, every Sunday, I used to go to church with them. She would make and start prepping chicken noodle soup and have it boiling while we were in service, and when we were done, she would add it all together, and we would eat it for lunch, and it was just my favorite. So I've tried to make the best rendition of her recipe as I could. So what we're going to do today is actually talk about pretty much how she did it. But before we get started, I actually want to show y'all some of the health benefits that can be acquired from eating chicken noodle soup. So let's start with a quick video. Okay, that was very informative. And there's some alternatives in there. Ginger, lemon, I've never used them, but we'll talk about that a little more at the end. So here's my list of ingredients. You're going to start with a 48-ounce thing of chicken broth, a 32-ounce thing of chicken stock, a 10.5-ounce can of cream of chicken, a pound and a half of grilled chicken breast, but we're only going to use probably 2/3 of that, 8-ounce bag of the no yolks noodles, a cup of chopped carrots, a cup of chopped celery, a cup of chopped sweet onion, and 2 cloves of minced or chopped garlic, whichever one you have, and salt and pepper to taste. And before we get going, I'm going to talk about some of the USDA guidelines for cooking poultry and just handling. So make sure it's clean, wash your hands and surfaces often. You got a chance of, salmonella. Salmonella is a possibility. Make sure you separate raw meats from other foods. You definitely want to get your internal chicken temp up to 165 just to ensure doneness. And refrigerate promptly after cooking so you don't leave it out and exposed to airborne. I like to cook mine, these are little side notes. I like to cook my chicken breast for 40 to 45 minutes on the grill just to make sure it's done. You can also pan grill them indoors in a skillet, or you can boil them as a last ditch effort. You can butterfly the breast and to reduce the cooking times. And don't forget to marinate your chicken just to make sure it has a good flavor. So my instructions here, it's going to be in a large pot. We're going to add the chicken stock, the chicken broth, the carrots, the onions, and the garlic. And we're going to boil that. It's going to bring it to a boil. We're going to cover it for at least an hour and let that kind of reduce down. I'm going to grill the chicken while that's boiling on the grill. And once that's done, we're going to go ahead and add the celery. And I think I added some rough chopped onions just so we had some rougher, beefier onions in there. And then let that boil for about 3 hours, and then we're going to cut the chicken up into small chunks and boil noodles, drain it, and then we're going to add the cream of chicken, the noodles, the grilled chicken, and bring that all back to a boil. Shut off the heat, and it'll be ready to eat at that time. You can either refrigerate it and have it the next day, or you can eat it immediately. In a decent sized mixing bowl, add your chicken. I like to use the rotisserie chicken. Use liberally. Also like zesty Italian dressing. Liam Perrin's Worcestershire sauce. Reduced sodium. Just preferred over the regular. Salt and pepper, and sometimes minced garlic. Okay, I've added the salt and pepper with the grinders, which I use like a pink salt and a pepper grinder. And now I'm just adding a little minced garlic to it. And we're going to let this sit as long as we can. The longer the better, but 1 hour minimum. So, okay, now I'm going to cover it with foil and place it in the fridge, and that's where we'll let it sit. Okay, here's your basic ingredients that we're going to use to get our stock going. We're actually going to start with chicken stock. Use whatever brand you like. I'm only going to use probably half that. I've got two different styles of the chicken broth. Both of them are low sodium. Feel free to use whichever one or style you want. I'm going to use about that much of this, one of each. The cream of chicken, if you like it extra creamy, go with the big can. Less creamy, use a smaller can if you want a little more thin. Using sweet onion, that's just my preference. You can use white. I wouldn't use red. I would use white or none if you don't like them. But when we boil down our stock, we're actually going to reduce those onions down to nothing, so you're not going to really see them or taste them. If you like to taste them, put some in at the end. I'm only going to use like 2 cloves of this garlic. I'm going to use a mincer. If you don't have one, you can just chop it finely. Salt and pepper, just a taste. I'm using sweet, petite little carrots. I'm going to chop them up a little bit. Celery. I'm also going to use some celery, chopped up, probably 3 stalks, maybe 4. Depends on your preference. And those will go in later. They will cook down to nothing. You won't even taste them. So we'll put those in at a later time. And then I like the no yolk, no cholesterol noodles. There's extra broad. These things will swell. There's also a dumpling out there. Use whichever one you want. Experiment with it, play with it, see what you like. So here I am gonna add the stock. Like I said, this is only half the contents of this big jug. So if you get the smaller jug, just add the whole thing. And what we're gonna do is bring this to a boil along with the broth and the onions and the garlic, and we're gonna start boiling that down. So here is the broth, and to this we're gonna add our chopped onions and carrots and garlic. Okay, so as you can see, I've got a cup of chopped carrots, a cup of chopped celery, and if you look, I actually added a little bit of onion to it for the end. Like I said, the celery will boil down and you won't even see it in there, so I kind of add it towards the end of the cooking process. I've also chopped up about a half of that sweet onion, and I've got 2 cloves of garlic here there's 2 that are unchopped and 2 that are about to get minced. And I'm going to go ahead and add the onions, the carrots, and the garlic at this time to our stock in our broth. Okay, so here is the garlic, the carrots, and the onions going in. And you want to let this boil. The longer the better. I usually boil it until the onions are completely eradicated, especially if you got kids that don't like onions. Boil this solution until, like I said, till the onions are reduced to nothing. Okay, I've added salt and pepper. I'm now gonna cover, and over a medium-high heat, we're gonna boil this, like I said, for as long as you can. 4 hours, optimal. Sometimes it can only be an hour if you've got that little of a time. So just realize like the onions and stuff will be a lot chunkier and heartier than they would be if you were to actually boil them down. So keep that in mind. So now that we've got our mixture boiling, we're going to let that go as long as we can. Again, we're going to wait and add the celery. If you have a short time span, you can add the celery now. I added a few onions to the top just to make sure that we have, I like some in there. They're big. I left them so my kids can pull them out. And don't add the cream of chicken yet. It'll cause overboiling and bubbling. I'm not sure why. It just does. So we add that towards the end of the cooking process, as well as the noodles. I'm sorry. The noodles, if you added them now, they will just cook into oblivion. They'll be overcooked. So we will add all this at the later parts of the cooking. So here's the chicken that was marinating overnight. I'm going to go ahead and throw that on the grill now. And I like to cook my chicken for 5 minutes on each side. Or 5 minutes, then I'll rotate it. 5 minutes, I'll flip it. 5 minutes, I'll spin it just to get the crisscross grill marks. Then I'll set it up on the top shelf up there for another 20, just to make sure the chicken is done. If you want to butterfly your chicken and increase the cooking time, you're more than welcome to. Sometimes you can pan sear them. Worst case scenario, you can even boil them. And one other note, I do try to grill my chicken at about 350 for the whole 45 minutes. So just keep that in mind. Keep your temperatures up, kind of like you're baking it in an oven. All right, the chicken is done. They've been on the grill for 40 minutes. I'm about to pull them off, and I'm gonna let them cool down before I try to cut into them. As you can see, our stock with the onions and carrots and garlic is got a nice roiling boil going here. And I'm about to add the celery and the coarse chop onions. So let's go ahead. And that's that cup of celery. Of course, it's going to slow down. Cover it back up. And I'm on about a medium now. Actually, I'm on a medium-low setting. Okay, it's been about 4 hours. The pot's still boiling. And I'm going to take 2 of the 3 chicken breasts, the 2 smaller ones, to chop finely into small bite-sized pizzas. And mainly just because if you're going to double the recipe, use all 3 of the chicken breast. We're not going to use it all. It'll be a little bit too chickeny. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to add the no yolk noodles to the boiling water. I'm following the instructions on the back of the bag. And it says to boil those for 10 minutes uncovered. So let me stir this in. Now we're ready to add the chicken. The noodles have boiled and they're straining right at the moment. We're also going to add the cream of chicken. I'm going to use a small can. See where it goes from there. I may have to add an extra one. Just go ahead and dump it upside down, Bubs. There you go. And I'm also going to add the boiled, reduced down here in just a moment, along with the noodles. All right, here are the noodles. Good job, assistant. And I will be adding the hot liquids. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just bring this back to a slight simmer, and as soon as you see any bubbles, shut the heat off and cover, and we're done. Okay, so I did add 1 more cup of water, and it is almost starting to bubble now, so I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, as soon as you see a few bubbles pop up, we're going to go ahead and just turn this off and cover it. And you can refrigerate it, eat it tomorrow, which is way better tomorrow, or you can eat it immediately. So are there any, sometimes you have to take people's health and dietary needs into consideration. So what would be some kind of health or dietary needs? Anybody have any special needs?
Maybe if anybody has like high blood pressure,
High blood
maybe
pressure?
a little less salt
That's
would be
why
beneficial.
I actually use a lot of low sodium ingredients in mine due to the low sodium needs. Some people might even have diabetes where they got to think about maybe the noodles they're using. Whatever your needs are, think about that, especially if the people, your guests, people eating it. Some alternative ingredients. Anybody have any ideas?
Definitely, just if you wanted to beef up the stock, you could add heavy cream.
Heavy cream? Okay,
Add a little more of
good.
a creamier consistency. I know some people enjoy creamy consistency rather than frothy.
Nice.
You could also add in butternut squash to help add a richness, even a sweetness to your broth.
Nice. Okay, that's a good idea. Those are good ideas. And we saw ginger and lemon juice. I've never heard of those. Those are great ideas. Feel free to use it, whatever you want to try. And some alternative cooking methods. Anybody got any ideas?
Crock pot.
Crock pot. Crock pot's a great idea. It'd be a slow cook, set it and forget it kind of situation. I'm not sure of any other.
If you didn't have a crock pot, you can always do it in the oven.
Oh, oven.
In a stock pot.
That's a good idea. Okay, that's a great idea. Any suggestions for my soup?
I'm definitely one of the people who enjoys a creamier soup, so I would like a little heavy cream. Other than that, I think the flavor is great, and I like the cooking methods, and how you get everything done and marinate your chicken. It makes for a really tasty soup.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Very
Well, I hope y'all enjoy it, and thank you for listening. I want to thank you for your participation today and all the great input I got from you guys. So on your way out, please take my recipe, add it to your cookbook, and enjoy.